Have you ever been scared? I think we all have been scared at some point of our lives. That something bad is going to happen, or not being able to fully control the situation. Or maybe it's different kind of fear that you experienced. Fear of being judged, unseen, or rejected, or that you're going to get hurt. Maybe you, like myself, have been afraid to speak up and express your true thoughts and feelings to others. Or perhaps it's fear of change, uncertainty, or doing anything outside your comfort zone that's most familiar. Yes, I have been scared. Many times. In fact, I probably have to raise my own hand to all I've just mentioned. Not sure if I've ever experienced that kind of situation, but I've literally had moments when I was thinking, okay, this must be it then. It's a funny feeling. Up to this moment, I find it hard to believe that I apparently thought that it was a good idea to put myself in that kind of nerve-wracking situation a minimum of 3 times a week for 5 years. This is what I learned about people and myself after having jumped into more than 600 cars of total strangers. Let's have a look at the map. This is Latvia, a country where I come from. This is Denmark, a country where I used to live and study. This is Tallinn, Estonia, just a casual cross-border road trip somewhere in the middle. 2011 to 2016. Every time I had to go somewhere, anywhere, I never drive, take a taxi, train, or bus, because who needs that if you could actually go and ask people to help you, right? Every time I had to head to work, university, or meet friends, I'd simply go stand by the highway, stick my thumb out like this, and hope for a car to stop and somebody give me a lift. If you're driving and you're going 50 miles an hour, you should know that the span of seeing objects passing by literally ties into a couple of seconds. Plus, as I've experienced, people are not really driving around 5:30 p.m. Monday evening looking for adventures. They just want to get home as quick as possible. Take a shower, make some dinner, put kids to sleep, work on a project, rest. So how could I even hope from a person who doesn't owe me a thing, who hasn't even got a chance to see me properly or talk to me, do something so completely irrational, interrupt their day, and pull the car over? There are a list of legitimate factors that completely underlines the fact that this does not make much sense to actually happen. As a driver, you would have 2 to 3 seconds to actually make a decision to interrupt your day and stop your car for a complete stranger. People tend to be very careful, even making rational decisions in their everyday lives, and give the idea a lot more thought than that. If you, as a driver, have decided to pull over, that now puts you in quite a vulnerable situation, because you never know who the person you're letting your private space is. If you're a male driver, now you have other factors to consider, and you'd probably be thinking, now, what exactly is this young woman doing standing on a highway like that? If you, against all the odds, have stopped your car anyway, you would have now voluntarily put yourself in a pretty narrow, closed space with a complete and utter stranger for a minimum of 45 minutes. We all know how awkward it can be meeting someone you know nothing about for the first time. Open up and find any things to talk about. Remember, I just mentioned that I've actually experienced moments I was scared for my life. Now, I'll give you a perspective of what factors did I have to consider putting myself in that particular situation, standing on the road. Weather conditions. Security aspects. Imagine getting in a car of complete stranger. As a young female, one thing is to worry if you have something to talk about with the driver. Other thing, especially if it's a male driver, or oftentimes 2 males in a car, is to seriously hope a person who had just picked you up is a good person. I'm not gonna lie, there have been moments, obviously kept a brave face, but I had shivers all over my back. Like at the one time, a male driver started driving off the road and into the forest at 11 p.m. at night, saying, "I'm just gonna show you my house." How could I ever have that much trust within me that the odds are going to be in my favor and nothing bad will ever happen to me in a period of 5 years of constantly being in a road? How could I ever have that much trust in so many completely different people for no logical reason at all? And how on the earth could they trust me? Yet, my personal experiences gathered in 5 years of constantly being in a road provide facts that defy all logic. As my calculations prove, the period of my first study year in Denmark, the period of 9 months, I would normally hitchhike to work 3 times a week. That is 6 cars in a week, forth and back, 4 weeks in a month, 36 weeks in 9 months. So 6 multiplying 36, that gives us a rough estimate of 216 rides. Now think, roughly 260 times I've stood by the highway and had the trust that somebody will actually stop their car for me. The period of 4 years before my studies in Denmark, I would normally do 1 ride every 2 weeks. 4 weeks in a month, 208 weeks in 4 years. That gives us a rough estimate of 416 rides. Now think, more than 600 different people have actually pulled over, stopped their cars for me, and given me a lift. But you can either trust the numbers or the evidence of this image here with me and my mom hitchhiking to a classical music concert on a hot summer day. I imagine she had a million better ideas of more ways to get there. The point is, despite the list of limiting factors, people did trust me, and I voluntarily put my trust in every single one of them. And I'm glad I can share my takeaways of these 600 journeys and encounters today. I discovered a whole new perception of me as human and people around me as the same human beings that has left a continuous impact in my life, the way I see, perceive, and communicate with people. I like to call it the human concept. The human concept is when you remove the unnecessary gap between people and simply accept the fact that you are human and the person in front of you is just as human as you are. I've been carrying this perception with me up to this moment here. It has helped me massively in terms of interacting with people, going for things I want, and living my life, really. And one thing I do know for sure, I probably wouldn't be standing on this stage here today if I hadn't discovered it. I used to have a very static perception of people and my place in society. I grew up thinking that if your parents could afford to buy you better clothes, it somewhat made you a better person. I thought that your worth was somewhat defined by either how pretty you look, what family you came from, or even how much pocket money you got. That's when I started gaining the idea of gap between human and human, and that gap scared the hell out of me. The model of a society I saw and experienced as a kid, teenager, and onwards was not the one we were equals, standing on and sharing the same ground. I saw a ladder. Somebody was standing lower, and somebody was standing higher in the ladder. And then there was a gap between human and human. The gap of differences, financial, occupational, life backgrounds, life experiences, ethnical, religious, political, or any other backgrounds. The worst part, because the only thing I was able to see was that gap between me and any other person, I started being afraid to reach out to people, wouldn't dare to go for things I wanted, and completely closed down. I was 17, and I wanted to understand myself better and people better, and I knew I had to start pushing myself outside my comfort zone in order to do so. Well, turns out hitchhiking must have been one way to do it. When I was so afraid of communicating with people in general, suddenly I had a chance to talk with all of them. I never knew who I was going to meet. For the first part of my journey, it could have been a construction worker. For the second part of my journey, a restaurant chain owner. On the way there, could have been a hospital nurse. On the way back, an actress. Teachers, artists, musicians, farm workers, carpenters, store assistants, politicians, a priest, a children's hospital clown once. Latvians, Danes, Swedes, Turkish, Russians, Estonians, Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, atheists, people in early 20s and late 60s, successful business owners, and people just starting up their businesses. And then there was me, a small-town girl who knew nothing about setting up a business. I don't think I could have been more different from some people I met. I was a student, and I cleaned offices for a living at that point. As a matter of fact, I would sometimes hitchhike wearing this gorgeous high-fashion outfit. By the way, that's me in the picture. No wonder people gave me a lift. I'm going to quote a bright man in his late 60s who picked me up at 7 a.m. in the morning. The end of the day, people are just people. We're all the same, and we have to understand that. He did state the obvious, but after 10th, 11th, 100, 500 journey, it did start to click with me too. It didn't matter. Our backgrounds and life experiences didn't matter. I was able to deeply connect and communicate with every single person I met. We could even have a laugh together. In fact, some of these journeys, laughing was the only thing we were doing for 45 minutes straight. Not lying. Yes, we all have our stories. Speaking with hundreds of people, I learned we all go through good times and rough patches. We have our imperfections and things to work on, things we're proud of, and things we wish we had done differently. On the contrary to what I used to think, I learned that our stories didn't make us less human and pull us apart. In fact, they are what make us human and pull us closer. It suddenly didn't matter how much money I've got, what family I came from, or even what clothes I was wearing. One day, I got picked up by a truck driver. The next, environmental minister of Latvia. Big was my surprise that the same man actually became the president of Latvia later on. I still clearly recall the moment I actually saw him on a cover of a magazine, and I was shouting to my mom, "Mom, remember that guy I told you about who picked me up like a couple of months ago? And he said he was into politics." Well, turns out that guy is apparently the president of Latvia right now. Guess what? I was able to talk with both of them. The truck driver and the Mr. President. About the same things. We were talking how he had hitchhiked in the past and how important it is to help people. We were watching trees together and admiring different shades of green and how much beauty there is around us. Where did the gap between people go then? I have my explanation. There was simply something very magical about getting in a car of a complete stranger. I couldn't figure out for a long time what it was actually. Once I get in a car, I was able to connect with the most real and sincere version of myself. It was like me and the person who picked me up were suddenly given permissions to be really who we are. I could talk with an open heart and say what I actually thought and felt. And let me say, so did the people. Once a young male who picked me up said to me, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I haven't even told this to my mother." I later learned that the reason for me and the person who picked me up to be able to open up, be completely vulnerable, and get along was the actual setting. We were no longer in our normal standard life setups. We didn't know each other at all, nor were we surrounded by people that knew us. Basically speaking, we were now sharing a space that was kind and neutral. Throughout my 600 journeys, I learned that one of the most basic human needs is safety. Safety also means not to be judged. And when we feel we're not going to be judged, we feel that we're safe, and then can be our true selves. Real, sincere, selfless, kind, and vulnerable. There were no longer static perceptions or opinions, all built up in the past that could influence the way we saw each other or how we got along. There were no false beliefs or set up standards of how we were supposed to be as people. we could just be. Thank you.